All right, it's going now.
There we go.
Third time's a charm. All right, we'll get started here. It's almost connected. Perfect. Okay, so we are now live on the YouTube ER9 channel and recording on Zoom Cloud. And we'll go ahead and call to order if the chairs want to call each of their boards to order. Start, John.
Sure. Call to order the Easton Board of Education at 7:34 p.m. on Tuesday, October 27, 2020. In attendance, myself, John Stinson, I see Gretchen Goldstein, I see Jenny Cheetah, and I see Devin White.
All right, and Chris.
Right. Call the regular meeting of the Reading Board of Education to order at 7:35 p.m. We have a quorum present. I've seen all members of the board. I understand Mr. Riley is having technical issues and dropped off, so he's not present right now, but will re-enter. Everyone else is present.
All right, and I will call the Region 9 Board of Education to order for the regular joint meeting at 7:35 p.m. And I see all members of Region 9, Cheryl, Juliet, Mike, Maureen, Gwen, Mary Lee, Karen, and Todd present.
Mr. Riley has rejoined for Reading.
All right, so call to order. We are done. I'll move to the second item on the agenda, which is public comment. So we do have several members of the public on. Doesn't look like we have anybody by mobile phone, so everybody's on the Zoom channel. So again, if you would like to speak, we would ask that you raise your hand or the hand symbol in the chat and limit your comments to 2 minutes or less, and also identify yourself, name and address, and we will try to find you here and unmute you so you can speak. It looks like Sherry Williams, and then John and Chris, if you can help me as well, find people. I see Sherry, so Sherry, let me unmute you and should be good to go. Go ahead, Sherry.
Hi there, everyone. Sherry Williams, 26 Riley Road in Easton. Good evening, everyone. I really just want to say thank you to the administration, to the board for the creation of the Cohort D. I have been an advocate for full opening. I do have 2 students. I have 3, in fact, in the high school, 2 that are benefiting greatly from the opportunity to go full-time 5 days a week. There have been noticeable benefits from being in Cohort D. So I just want to share with everyone my positive experience, their positive experiences. And so to the extent that that cohort continues in existence, again, I just want to share my positive experience and hope that others have the opportunity to benefit from it as well. And again, I'm for full open. I see the positive effects with my children, but for now, if Cohort D is the way we have to move forward, just want to let other parents know that I am available to share my positive experiences if anyone, wants that opinion. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, other members of the public who wish to speak?
I don't see any hands in the waiting room or in the participants window.
I'll just go one more second here. I don't see any others. All right, then we will move on to item 3 on the agenda, board member comment. Let me just go to each of the boards, and John, if you want to go first, reasons. If there's anyone board comment from your board, we'll just go around. Maybe easier than free for all.
Sure. For Easton, are there any members of the Easton board present who would like to make comment? Okay.
Okay, Chris.
Any Reading board members have any board member comment this evening?
Chris, it's Colleen. I'd just like to say something. Our last meeting as a board together, we tried an in-person meeting where the public was in attendance virtually and some of our staff. And I think, as Chris Hawker said, that wasn't as terrible as I thought it was going to be. It was not terrible, and it was wonderful to see my fellow board members' faces. But what I was struck by on the way home, not literally, figuratively, what I was struck by on the way home was that those challenges are what our staff are faced with every day. They're trying to run a classroom where they have some people in person in the room, and they have to reach others at home virtually. And so I just wanted to say thank you to them, again, to all of our administrators, to all of our staff. I just wanted to say thank you again for supporting this incredible change in your profession. I got a tiny little taste of it, and I could see how challenging it is just to manage adults that way. And so really, I was just filled with gratitude that our staff is hanging in there with us and doing the best they can. I really do believe doing the best they can to deliver and reach all our students.
Thank you, Colleen. Any other comment from Reading board members? I would just make a comment. I want to acknowledge Scott Rice tonight. I want to thank him for his service and leadership to our district for the past 3 years that might feel like 20. And this is the last time we'll see his basement on our screens. But it is, there is no amount of praise that would be sufficient for the level of integrity and professionalism he's brought to this role over the past several years. And so I know that I will miss his work with us and want to sort of express my appreciation on behalf of the Reading board and all of us. So thank you, Scott.
Hear, hear.
Amen. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. And for Region 9, any comment from board members? And thank you, Scott, as well, from Region 9. Karen, go ahead.
I just wanted to express my support for possibly opening the high school for a full day on alternating weeks for the students in cohorts A and B if we're not going to be able to go full in. I think that those students are already in the school for the day. And I know that, the teachers have had quite a bit of professional development. I'm sure, there's always more needed, but that has to be balanced with the need of the students to also get maybe hopefully another full day of school in per week. So I think that would sort of alleviate the problem of getting other people in. They're already there. They could just stay the whole day. So that was just a thought.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other Region 9 board members? Okay, then we'll move on to item 4, discussion and possible action. The first item, A, amendment to the transportation contract. And Scott, I'm going to turn this over to you. I made you a co-host as well if you wanted to show anything, or I'll let you go ahead and open this topic.
Yep, very good. I have distributed to, along with the agenda, to all board members, a draft copy of a memorandum of understanding to be put in place between each of the 3 boards and First Student. This is pursuant to the extension of the Governor's Executive Order 7R, which was also in effect in the spring. And therefore, as a result, we're obligated to negotiate to pay a portion of the transportation cost, even on days that we don't run transportation. So what you have in front of you was developed, of course, in cooperation with Council. It reflects exactly what we did in the springtime as well. And it would remain in effect through this entire school year, unless modified by either of us in writing. Of course, we can always come back and renegotiate it should we desire to, or the earlier of the expiration of Executive Order 7R. So either of those 2 things would trigger a change in the MOU. So the request that is before you this evening would be to authorize board chairs individually for all 3 boards to sign this memorandum of understanding to put in place with First Student, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Maybe we get the motions down on the floor for each of the boards and then we can discuss. So we'll start. John, do you want to, or Easton?
Certainly. Do we have draft language that we want to use?
I do not think so. for
I
this
assume
one.
we're looking for a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the three boards and first student and authorize the chairs to sign the same, basically.
Sounds good. Chris, do you want to start?
Chris, it sounds like you're entertaining a motion to do just that.
That's what it sounded like. Is somebody in Reading want to make that motion? I'm happy to type it out if people are more comfortable with that. But
I'll make that motion.
Juliet is nodding.
Mike Hoffman just made the motion.
I'll make it. Yeah.
Is there a second in Reading?
I'll second John Riley.
Thank you, John.
Same motion in Easton. Anyone want to make that motion in Easton?
So moved.
Gretchen. Thank you, Gretchen. And a second from, thank you, Devin.
All right. And then for Region 9, a similar motion. Someone like to make it up?
So moved, Karen.
Karen, thank you. And a second.
Second,
moved.
Cheryl. Oh, okay.
All right. Second, Cheryl. All right. Thank you. All right. Now open for discussion or any questions for Scott. And I'm assuming everybody has the agreement as well. So if not, let us know. We can send it to you. Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, just a sort of technical question. The percentages that are shown in various places in the document, the 77.2 and all that, is that based on some formula? What is that? It's not a natural percentage unless it's related to something.
It is related to something, and it's the same percentage as was in effect in the spring. It is a determination of costs that represent the base costs if all of their employees remain employed. That would be net of any other sort of burdened type costs on top of it. So it's intended to cover costs, but not to cover any sort of corporate overhead or profit margin.
And that's in section 9 of the document, the 77.4. Is that what you're referring to, Chris?
In section 8 and 9, yeah.
8 and 9.
Yes, and there's another percentage. Again, I just wanted to, for clarity, understand what those percentages referred to.
Sure. So the first,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, the higher percentage reflects the scenario where first student has kept all of their drivers on staff, so they have not furloughed their employees. The animating principle behind Executive Order 7R is to maintain the viability of the transportation provider to continue to provide services, even in the event that they may be not running buses for some extended period of time. So in the event that they have kept all of their staff on staff, we would pay the higher percent. To the extent they have not done that and that they have reduced their workforce, we would pay the lower percentage.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, so, this is way out of my wheelhouse. So I am interested in your expertise. Does anything concern you about this agreement? Is there any part of this that you have reservations about?
No, in fact, it does follow the same approach we took in the spring. I worked with the same contact at our council's office who developed it in the spring, who also developed it in the fall. It has the further advantage of, since there are so many districts in the state who deal with first student, it has been pre-worked out with their council as well. So it is an approach that is being used consistently across districts.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from any of the boards? Mike?
So when we say that this is the same as it was previously and it's consistent, is this percentage stipulated in the executive order, or is there a certain percentage that's mandated? Or is this a percentage that's been negotiated and worked out between First Student and the districts throughout the state? That's the first part. And the second part is, are there any school districts that are paying different percentages than we are? And the third is that, is this document, this final version of the document, been reviewed in its entirety by council so that we don't need to put pending review by council in our motion?
It has been reviewed by council, this final version. In regards to the question about the percentage, every district would negotiate their own percentage. And the reason for that is everybody has a different contract. And so since we all have different contracts, we have different levels of agreements of what we're paying for, what we're not paying for, what they're paying for, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know what is in other districts. I do know that broadly we are in the range of what other districts are doing, but everybody would negotiate their own separately. And we did in fact negotiate our own separately in the springtime as well.
So we have no awareness of whether we're towards the high side or towards the low side. We just negotiated individually without any comparisons, so to speak.
I have general comparisons. I don't have an exhaustive list. The way the negotiation was conducted was First Student provided a complete breakdown of all of the components of their cost. And after a line-by-line review of each of those, I made a determination in discussion with them and with clarification from council as well, which of those were direct costs versus indirect costs. So the 77.4 reflects the direct component.
Okay. And there's also cleaning. There's items in this that relate to cleaning. Are those consistent with what we have discussed in the past? Is any of that new, or is that pretty standard?
The references to cleaning that are in here are part of agreements that we have made with First Student already.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions?
Todd, I just have this is Cheryl. I have a couple questions. With respect, because I know we're bound, or all districts in Connecticut are bound by the executive order and having to make the payment. But just directionally, is this flat to versus the prior year expense, or these amounts match exactly what's in each respective district budget?
This is a subset of the amount that's in each district's budget. So the form of the MOU is that on a day in which we did not run buses, we would still be able to pay First Student for 77.4% of their cost as if we had run. So in essence, we're paying 26% less than what our budget is.
Okay. And there's really no exposure, Scott, based on what each district budgeted, right, as approved, right?
That's correct.
Or is there, okay.
No, this doesn't represent incremental cost. It represents less than what we would have spent, but sorry, it represents less than what we would spend in the event that the day that we ran buses on the day. It represents 77.4% more than what we would spend if we didn't normally, because the way our contract currently is written is that we do not pay for transportation on days we don't run.
But I guess what I'm trying to understand is, so with respect to, but that actual cost, a dollar value cost is already included in the budgets that were approved, right? There's no, for example, I'm making this up, but say the budget was 500K, the signing of this MOU doesn't make it 501 or 499. That's what I'm trying to get an idea of.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other board member questions? All right, we'll go ahead and call the vote then. And Chris, I think you started the motion, so do you want to go
We
ahead?
started, so we'll call the vote. Heather,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Steph,
Yes.
Chris Hawker.
Yes.
I vote yes, carry 7-0.
Thank you. John?
Call and vote in Easton. Jenny? Yes? Good. Devin?
Yes.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes, 4-0.
And for Region 9, Cheryl,
Yes.
Juliet,
Yes.
Mike,
Yeah.
Maureen,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mary Lee,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Todd, I vote yes as well, so carries 8-0 for Region 9. Motion passes by all 3 boards. All right, moving on then to item B under discussion possible action, DI Task Force update, and I'll turn this over to Dr. Harrison, Dr. Pearson-Newell, and Heather.
This is going to be quick from me. The application process is up and running. We have applications for every position on the task force so far, except for, and there's a reason for this, which I just realized today, the certified staff member at Barlow, Samuel Staples, and RES, and the student member at Helen Keller. So anyone who's listening, the 2 elementary schools, it was pointed out to me that it's sort of confusing the way it's worded there. It says that the elementary school positions will be filled after classroom discussion, but that was for the students. So any elementary school teachers that are interested can go ahead and fill out that application. We're taking them through November 3rd.
And so the application window is open for all positions, not just the ones you mentioned.
Yeah, yes. I'm just saying that those are the ones we have not had anybody apply for.
Right. I just don't want anybody to think any spot has been filled at this point.
Oh, no, nothing has been filled. Thanks.
We've shared that information as far as outstanding applications or areas where there have been no applications. Shared that with administrators, and we'll follow up in tomorrow's admin council meeting.
Thank you.
Any other updates there? Any other board member questions on this topic? Otherwise, we'll move on. Scanning all the windows here. I don't see anything else. All right, then we'll move on to item C, update on policy committee work. So, no, Chris or John,
Thanks, Todd.
if you'd like to update.
Sure. So just a quick update. We continue to meet every Friday, barring conflicts that make it impossible to get quorum, but we tend to meet each Friday. We've been going through the 3000 series. We have taken a break in the last couple to dive into some of the policy that might touch on sort of the way that our 3 boards work together, and trying to pull something together so that we can discuss it as soon as possible. One of the things that we started doing at the beginning of policy review process is actually start to catalog each sort of duty or responsibility that's highlighted in policy that will be the responsibility of individuals in central office. So if it says the superintendent or their designee will ... if the policy says they need to be doing it, we need an easier way of identifying all of those locations. And so we're cataloging those in what we're calling the enumerated duties document. And so pulling all that into one spot, so we'll be able to look at it. I can say that it is already, even though we're not quite half through the policies, it is already a very daunting document to look at when we consider the amount of work that we're asking of our central office administrators. A part of this process, we were hoping to get done by the time Dr. Harrison joined us, and obviously we did not achieve that, but we're still plowing ahead and hoping to have it done as soon as possible. Does anyone have questions about that? We record all of them in live stream. Feel free to watch them. We are productive, but also fun.
John, what do you normally do for fun if you didn't have this?
You can binge watch them, is what you're telling us, John.
We should turn on ads on them, and we can drive some new revenue into it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add here that it implies that we didn't meet our task somehow, and we are really doing a wholesale review of the policy manual. So we have accomplished a great deal so far, and anyone is willing to can come Friday morning.
It's been very productive work and some of the most productive sort of regular work I think I've done in my time on the board. And I appreciate the work that Gwen and Maureen and John have done as well in sort of keeping this work plowing ahead. And eventually we will charge CABE for all of our work when we sell the policy book back to them.
That's right.
Always thinking of the revenue streams. I like that.
Right. That's it for me.
All right, great. Any other comments, discussion on the policy committee work? Okay, and we will move on to item D, central office budget 2021-2022. So Dr. Harrison or Scott, if you have any comments at this time.
Tag team on this just a little bit. I want to provide a little bit of context just in relationship to sort of where I am in my entry plan, and then turn it over to Scott to give a little bit more detail related to central office budget. And if you will allow me permission to
Yep.
share my screen.
Second. Okay, should be a co-host here in a second. Yep.
All right, so just to provide a little context, today is day 60 of my 90-day plan. And you'll remember that I kind of broke this plan into 3 separate phases. The first phase really digging into our medical, sort of where we are with our health data. And then the second piece of it really digging into getting feedback from families and community members. And then the third, shifting into planning. So that first phase, as you can imagine, took a little bit longer than anticipated. We are still working closely with our local health officials related to positive cases and continuing to make revisions to our reopening plan as necessary. And so that said, I'll continue to extend the listening tour beyond phase 2 as we're starting to do some of that planning. And really just a reminder that focus is on planning, learning, listening, and then partnering. I'm sorry, listening, learning, partnering, and then planning. Yes. So just as a reminder, there are 4 entry plan questions that I've been focused on. So what should I know about the Easton and Reading communities? What are the strengths that should be sustained? What are the challenges facing our districts and our communities? And are there opportunities that should be further considered or that we should explore? 4 virtual family forums coming up. So this is hot off the press. I'll be sending a message to our families tomorrow, inviting them to participate in one of these virtual forums, but then also just for people who it doesn't work well from a scheduling standpoint, that they could still respond to these questions through some kind of survey or form. These are also the questions that I've been using as I've been meeting one-on-one with our administrators, with central office staff, with groups of students, with some of our alumni groups, and really just using this as an opportunity to start to lay out a framework and prioritize what our needs are going forward. One of the things that I wanted to talk about just from a standpoint of learning more about the district is really looking specifically at our ability to work cohesively. So looking at our coherence and our operational alignment. I know that this is a huge piece of the role of central office as we're thinking about how to move the district forward from where we are to where that future vision is, and to what extent we're able to do that in a cohesive manner, coherently, and making sure that we are moving efficiently. That was one of the things that was a huge priority for me as part of this learning process, as part of the entry plan, to get a sense of where we are on that. And so this is a framework that's adapted from Future Ready Schools framework that really is just a nice way to look at how all of these pieces connect together. So looking at curriculum instruction, personalized professional learning, budget and resources, community partnership, data and privacy, robust infrastructure, and use of time and space. This is, these gears work together towards a vision of student-centered learning, but it really is very germane to our work right now as we are engaged in blended learning at all levels. And so when we're thinking about robust infrastructure and how we're using time and space, data and privacy, these are all things that are really, really relevant. And even though this framework is about future-ready schools, it is clear that the future is right now. So as I'm thinking about future forecasts, as I shared kind of coming in as part of this entry plan, my goal is that I would be able to work collaboratively with the 3 boards, with our community, with our teachers and administrators to develop a 3 to 5 year strategic plan and really grounding those plans, that plan in 3 big, broad areas. So looking at our ABCs and enduring goals and aspiration, connecting and tying to the work of the task force with the diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, and then looking at that coherence and operational alignment. So just to dig into those just a little bit, as a reminder, our enduring goals, that ABC, looking at academic excellence, building a caring community, and cultivating future-ready learners. I shared a little bit about this in previous meetings, just looking at our diversity, equity, and inclusion framework. And this is adapted from work by Kumashiro. And it really just takes this focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion and spreads it into 4 broad categories: the governance and finance, teaching and learning, faculty and staff, and partnerships and programming. And you'll see that those areas underneath, those are all of the components of the DEI task force that was part of the charge of the task force. There's focus areas. So I took those focus areas and then aligned them to these 4 broad pieces of the framework in order to just make sure that we're aligning and that we see kind of where all these pieces fit together. And then the last piece is really digging into using this coherence and operational alignment framework to really guide our work towards student-centered learning. There's 4 components of student-centered learning. Learning is personalized, learning is competency-based, about students taking ownership and learning anytime and anywhere. And these are pieces that, again, we're really seeing the focus of student-centered learning in the way that we're engaging with students and this sort of blended learning model where we're having some students learn in person, some are learning at home, and a mix of those 2. And it really is been nice to see how we're tying the professional learning to build some of those skills, not just for dealing with present sort of focus areas, but also thinking towards the future with the focus on where we're headed. And so really just with curriculum and instruction, just thinking about digital learning and the connections there. Stephanie has talked previously about digital citizenship and the connections. Again, looking at personalized learning for our teachers, professional learning. A big piece here with coherence and operational alignment, which I think kind of ties nicely into where Scott is headed, is when we are thinking really strategically and long-term about budget and resources, and not just thinking from year to year, but the benefit of developing a longer-term plan is that we're able to forecast out a couple of years of anticipated cost, and then also places where we as a tri-district could look for efficiencies and also opportunities for growth. I think it's important as we're thinking about the learning anytime, any place, that we have a framework to support our students who are both learning in person and learning at home, and then developing those community partnerships so that that learning can take place within our community as well. We talk often about authentic learning experiences. And so to the extent that we could provide opportunities for our students to apply their learning at all levels and thinking about ways to develop community partnerships to do exactly that. There have been conversations already prior to my arrival about data and privacy, but particularly around data analysis, which is a component of this. And then again, looking at some long-term ideas around our robust infrastructure. So developing this 3 to 5 year plan focused on all 3 of these areas is a huge piece of this process. So as we're thinking about considerations for the future and some central office budget priorities, we're looking at a focus on digital learning, looking at facilities and some opportunities for improvement there. Again, we have the data analyst position that was previously discussed, and then just our capacity around project management. So there are a couple of moving pieces here. One is I know that we typically use this meeting to get a picture of what the central office budget will look like as part of the January meeting. So Scott will do that in just a few minutes, but I also just want to note that given that I'm 2/3 of the way through this entry process, wanted a little bit more time to be able to gather additional information from our community so that we could really dig into what are our priorities here as we're looking at these different areas, and then others that may not be on this list, to really consider how do we focus our central office resources in order to meet the needs that are in our building. And so I'll be sharing some more additional information with all of the boards during our December meetings. I will be wrapping up my entry plan at the end of November. And so it seems like a really natural period then to start looking towards developing some of those plans and really sketching out what the possible budget implications are. And so with that as kind of a backdrop, to stop sharing and turn it back over to Scott so that he could provide some specific context around our finances.
Sure, and I'm going to take the opportunity also just to share my screen here as well. Sorry, sometimes Zoom doesn't show you everything. So I need to just get Zoom to show me the actual screen that I want to share. Here we go. So you should see a screen that says Central Office 2021-2022 budget presentation. What I'm going to take you through is what we've typically covered in the October timeframe, and I think as Dr. Harrison has articulated, I needed to really make some assumptions working through this, as there are a number of considerations in play. Certainly in prior years, we've had a more definitive view of things, and I was able to come reasonably close in the October timeframe of where January ultimately ended up being. I do think that given the backdrop and the context that Dr. Harrison has provided, you see many things that are under discussion, and really none of those are reflecting here in what I'm presenting to you as those ultimately take shape over time. So the budget that I've developed for 21-22 is at 1.936 million, which is a total projected increase of 1.2%, or an increase of just over $22,000 or $7,400 per district divided 3 ways. Virtually all of that increase is salary and benefits, and 1.1 of the 1.2% is salary and benefits. And I'll show you a little more detail on the next slide of what the different moving components of the budget are. In addition to the types of things that Dr. Harrison was describing, other salary assumptions that I needed to really do reflect the fact that we are not yet at a place where the 21-22 agreements for employment contracts are firm yet for the superintendent position, assistant superintendent position, and director of finance and operations. So pending the results of those discussions, which would be occurring here in the next couple of months, that would have some effect on this as well. So lastly, the last slide that I wanted to show, and this is a bit more detailed. I'll attempt to just make this a little bigger. Hopefully that's clear. So this column here is the 21-22 budget that I mentioned, 1.936 million, increase of 22,208, 1.2%. But the salary and benefits component of this, which is salaries themselves and then other relevant benefits that are associated to that, some up, some down, but in aggregate, that's 1.1% of the total increase that's here. You will note that in the health insurance line, which is what funds the medical claims, I have elected to take that down just slightly. I do feel comfortable that the last couple of years of abnormally high claims is a period that is, I anticipate to be behind us. And so I'm comfortable that given the magnitude of the budget and the likelihood of where that's headed, that if we bring that down slightly, it should be at really no risk to us to do so. And then everything else here really just reflects the types of adjustments that I would make each year as I go through this. I sit down, I look at the prior spend in each of the different areas and make appropriate adjustments up or down in accordance with individual things that may be occurring throughout the course of the year to reflect this. So some up, some down, because of the nature of this budget, reflecting in a lot of ways some somewhat small dollar items. We see outsized percentage changes for small dollar movement. But in aggregate, I think the important point is 1.2% bottom line. I think then as these next few months work through and as recommendations to the boards are made, that will firm this up and adjust it as the January timeframe comes in and right in time for the rest of the budgeting season to follow through. So that's what I had. I'm happy to stop there and take any questions or perhaps any for Dr. Harrison.
So Scott, this is Colleen. I'm taking notes here so that I can be clear. The priorities that Dr. Harrison just shared are not yet reflected in this projection. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's correct.
Not yet.
And Scott, how did we arrive at the 1.1% increase for salaries and benefits?
Well,
I don't think that's been discussed yet.
No, it's a variety of assumptions that work throughout here. So as I say, some go up, some go down. I called out the medical insurance coming down. That offsets some of the other increases that are in here. So it's a mix of all of these.
So the 2.4, that's for all staff members, the majority of the staff members rather in central office. And the reason the number comes down is based upon the difference in salary for top administrators from previous year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this line that says 112 reflects every employee with the exception of the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and director of finance and operations.
Correct, but okay, so we'll get further details, I guess, in January relating to what the breakdown is, because typically we get, I understand there are some contracts that have yet to have their contractual increases negotiated. However, the assumptions used in this calculation would be helpful, I think, for us to know, and whether or not those reflect the sentiments of the superintendent and what he plans to bring forward in January. obviously we can't know anything, the other new items that are not included and the unknowns that are not negotiated. I just wondered if we could have further clarity on what is in this detail.
I do think that the January timeframe is probably the appropriate time to discuss that, mainly because in a number of cases, I've really made some assumptions with an eye towards preserving flexibility for negotiations to be worked through.
Mike, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
And I think that decisions would be made between now and then that would probably dramatically affect the shape of this. I tried to strike a balance between aggressive and conservative while preserving flexibility for individual negotiations to settle out and still maintain itself within this overall budget.
Mike, I was going to ask, does 16,000 spread across 10 plus employees seem out of line?
I can't really answer that at this point because it's really just a kind of a broad outline of what could happen. I guess I know that the October timeframe for this meeting was initiated by the previous superintendent in order to provide kind of awareness of what we would likely see in January. In fact, many times this was all we saw, and then in January it was already into the budgets and obviously discussed at the January tri-board meeting, but it was already in the budget. So again, I can't judge. I'm not saying that it's out of line in its current form, and I wouldn't presume to say that. I'm just wondering, obviously there's a lot of fixed costs in here that are, those are fine. I'm just wondering what the assumptions were made. When you see a line, it looks like non-certifieds are getting 2.4. I don't know whether that's across the board. I don't know some of the other variables, but it's fine. If we're going to learn them in January, I think that's fair with a new superintendent. I just wondered whether we had more clarity we were going to share at this time. That's all.
I would wonder and caution about the extent to which we drill down onto individuals with respect to this budget and the line that gets crossed between evaluation and governance. And just as a general word of caution, I would hope that we would avoid getting into questions that breach the sort of evaluative side of things.
Well, I think that's all right, but I too would like to know, is one employee getting an 8% increase and everybody else getting a 1%, right? I mean, I'd just like to know how that's.
My concern is that these things become a referendum on performance, and that's not an appropriate function for the board. Though I understand that you're looking for a level of detail, I'm just cautioning the slope upon which that slides.
No one's asking to look at evaluations.
I'm talking about things that have happened in the past where that's absolutely what's happened. So I'm trying to avoid that happening this year.
And I can certainly share that since there are so many unknowns here, it wouldn't make any sense for me to provide 8% in one area and 1% in another. Really, it's intended to get us to a point that there's a reasonable bottom line number that preserves the flexibility necessary, I think, to allow specific negotiations to reach a conclusion.
Scott, this is Cheryl. Just have a technical question. Is there any open head count that's in the proposed budget? Because I recall, and perhaps you mentioned this earlier, that the data analyst we had approved last year, but I don't recall it was being filled. So is there any open head count in some of these estimates?
Yes, that position remains open.
Okay, that's the only one, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And again, when we'll get the detail, but that I'm assuming that one is staying flat, or is there an increase to that one since we haven't filled it?
I did hold that one flat for that very reason.
Right. So again, not looking to evaluate the people, but just to understand the compensation. And also the other, contracts, I think that you mentioned, some of those are June end of fiscal year expiration. So I'm assuming you use the same amount carried forward, like the assistant superintendent and so forth, until we renegotiate.
I provided a provision for there to be a negotiated settlement, a negotiated agreement that would allow for some change there.
Okay.
Just for clarity, Scott and Dr. Harrison, I think what I'm hearing, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that this budget as presented might represent what might be termed a steady state budget from the previous year. But, and there's a big qualifier there, pending the review of how best to meet the goals of the three districts as laid out by Dr. Harrison. This could change, and it could change quite a bit. And I would venture to guess it shouldn't be looked at ultimately simply in the context of central office, but it could affect costs that are currently attributed to individual districts. Now, I probably extrapolated a little too much, but am I close?
I would certainly agree with most of what I heard you say. I'm a little unclear on the last part about costs attributed to other districts, but.
Well, we've had situations where there have been proposals to bring a position to central office with corresponding reductions in staffing in individual districts. That's all I was referring to.
I see what you mean. Yeah, this does not contemplate any of that at this point.
Right, right. But it could. The ultimate proposal could, and you won't be around, Scott, to hear me confuse you either.
I take your point, and I think your key point is exactly right. This broadly represents a steady state budget, and there's thinking, I think, and proposing and negotiating that will certainly happen between now and the January timeframe that will bring this more into focus.
And what I think I've also heard was that it's not as though here we are in late October and we'll never hear anything about this again until January. That hopefully there will be some development and evolution that can be discussed with the individual boards between now and then, so that it's not like we go from night into day, where we look back at this and say, well, wait a second. You just told me we were going to have a 1.2% increase.
Yes, and so Chris, to that point, I mean, I think that it makes sense for me during the meetings in December to be able to come back and give a clearer picture prior to that, to the January meeting. And so, you know, for me as a leader, I don't like surprises, and so I don't like surprising board members either. And so it will be important for me to provide context along the way. And to that point, it's just really buying a little bit more time to get a better picture.
All right, other board member questions? So again, just to reiterate, this is steady state, assuming we haven't increased or decreased any headcount in central office, and we still have, you know, some salary increases that are still pending through discussions. But all current roles, including the data analyst, is included in this at the moment, and it could go up or down based on, you know, what happens over the next couple months and as we learn more about the strategic plan.
Yes, that's okay.
All right. Any other board member questions? All right. Seeing none, then we'll go ahead and close this topic. And we'll move on to item E under discussion possible action, which is the change in authorized signer of the ED 099 agreement for the child nutrition program. And Scott, I think this one's again yours. We're going to get every last bit of effort out of you here in this last meeting, so don't mind this topic as well.
I mean, So this is a requirement to update the authorized signatures on what is referred to as the ED 099 form. That is the agreement for the child nutrition program that is in place between our districts and the state of Connecticut. The form itself contains two signatures. One is the superintendent's, and the second is the director of finances. And in the event that one of those two change, we need to resubmit the form with the appropriate names changed on it, which must happen based on a motion, an action taken by the board to authorize such change. So specifically given Dr. McMorrin's departure and Dr. Harrison's arrival, the request would be for each board to authorize the change from Dr. McMorrin to Dr. Harrison effective immediately. And then upon that approval being provided by each of the boards, I would resubmit the form back to the state of Connecticut to bring it up to date.
All right. And then let's get motions from each of the boards and we can discuss. And thank you, Chris, or head of the game, got it already up for everybody to read. So do you want to go ahead and sorry, go ahead and start, Chris?
I think for Thursday, Scott was saying we wanted to change it, to change the authorized signature from Tom McMorrin, right, authorized signer of the ED 099 agreement for child nutrition, from Tom McMorrin to Dr. Harrison.
This is Scott's language. I'm happy to add from and to, but
yeah, sorry. Whoever wants to start with the motion, you can change the language.
But just let Scott clarify if this is acceptable.
In fact, I modeled this on the language. This very same motion was made when I joined to change over to my signature. So this is parallel to that.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I saw Mike making that motion for Reading.
So moved. Yep.
Second in Reading.
Yep, second.
John, thank you.
Good. Do we have a motion in Easton?
Jenny, so moved.
Thank you, Jenny. Jenny moved. Do we have a second in Easton?
Second, Gretchen.
Thank you, Gretchen.
All right, and Region 9, similar motion.
So moved, Gwen.
Gwen, thank you. And second,
Second.
Maureen, thank you. All right, open for discussion for new board members. Seems fairly straightforward.
Very controversial. So.
Yeah. All motions were so easy. All right.
Calling the question in Reading. Heather?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Chris Hocker?
Yes.
I vote yes, carry 7-0.
Call the question in Easton. Jenny?
Yes.
Thank you. Devin?
Yes.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes. Motion passes 4-0.
All right, and for Region 9, call the question. Cheryl? Sorry, you're on mute. Cheryl?
Sorry, yes?
All right, Juliet?
Yes.
Thank you. Mike?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Mary Lee?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And Todd, yes, carries 8-0. Motion passes by all three boards. All right, and that concludes item E for discussion and possible action.
Todd, before we move on to public comment, I'd like to either make or entertain a motion to amend the agenda and add as the new item 6, a possible executive session appointment of Director of Finance and Operations. So I'd either look for that motion from Reading or I'd make it myself.
I'll
Mike,
make that motion.
Mike makes the motion and it looks like John is seconding.
Yes.
Thank you.
The same motion in Easton.
Gretchen, so moved.
Thank you, Gretchen. Do we have a second in Easton?
Second.
Thank you, Jenny.
All right, for Region 9.
Just to clarify, Todd, are we also suggesting to add an additional agenda item to take action subsequent to the executive session?
We would need to amend that and put it back in if there is action.
I think the motion is what the motion is, and we can add another item if we need to add another item.
All right, so right now it's to go to executive session for the director, for the appointment of the director of finance and ops.
So moved, Cheryl.
Okay, and second. For Region 9, second.
How was it?
All right, I don't see a second. Is there a second for Region 9?
Really?
Mhm.
All right. There's no second from Region 9, so we'll leave it open for discussion or for the other two boards. Region 9 will not participate.
Any discussion in Easton? Nope. Okay.
Discussion in Reading? Call the question.
I mean, what happens now? So if, how will this work? If Region 9 doesn't.
It'll be added to the agendas of Reading and Easton's meetings to the extent that the motions carry. And to the extent that there's an executive session, in theory, either board could individually invite members of the Region 9 board to join the executive session. Or Region 9 could move into recess or adjourn short of the continuation of the Reading and Easton meeting.
Can I just ask, is it inappropriate for me to just ask my representatives at Region 9? I don't know if you're my colleagues or you're my board, right? I live in Reading. Can you just join us to make this conversation simpler?
As Chris said, if we're invited into the executive session, yes, but right now we don't have a motion, so we can't discuss it or vote on it.
I'm gonna throw a comment out there. This is Cheryl with respect to what Mike D'Agostino, you mentioned potentially adding another agenda item to make a decision out of executive session. Would Region 9 colleagues, would people reconsider seconding my motion if we amend as such? To Colleen's point, to in the spirit of moving forward on something.
I'm agreeable.
One for regional. Sorry, was that you, Ken?
Yeah, I said I'm agreeable to that if that'll help move the motion forward, or have discussion on the motion.
All right, well, we have two motions on the table, so.
So is there a motion for Region 9? And if so, what is the motion?
I think to add two agenda items, the agenda item that was suggested and moved by the Reading and Easton boards respectively, and then to add another agenda item to make a decision outside of executive session. If I recall, that's what Mike D'Agostino had said. So we could either go with two separate motions or amending the first to add another agenda item to make a decision out of executive session.
Okay, so that'd be item G.
Yeah.
Well, to be clear, the motion is to add it as item Roman 6 to come after public comment.
Oh, sorry.
So this would be 6A and 6B.
6A.
6A
Yeah.
would be possible executive session, appointment of director of finance and operations, and 6B would be discussion and possible action, appointment of director of finance and operations.
Yes.
Yes.
Outside of executive session.
I'm sorry, John?
It's outside of executive session. I think, and sorry, I don't want to speak for you, Mike. Is that,
It would be yeah, 6B would be outside of executive session. So 6A would be executive session, 6B would be action following executive session. All right, so there's Motion was Cheryl and Karen. Were you seconding?
Yes, I'll second.
All right. So Region 9, we have a motion for item 6A for the executive session and 6B for action outside of the executive session. For Region 9, all in favor? Let's see,
Aye.
Karen and Cheryl, so that's 2. All opposed? That is 6 against. The motion does not carry. All right. So we still have 2 motions on the floor for Easton and Reading.
Any additional conversation in Easton before we? No? Okay. Chris, you want to check for discussion?
Sure. Any other discussion? Sorry, Jenny?
John, can somebody just kind of break this down for me under the concern coming from ER9?
From
I just like to understand the issue at hand a little bit better.
I think that's a question for Region 9, but they just voted it down, so they're no longer in discussion. So I don't know if they can actually engage in discussion on this item, which is silly and bureaucratic.
No, we cannot.
Are you allowed, John, are you allowed to explain to me as a fellow board member why you presume members?
We can discuss all of this in the executive session that Region 9 will not be attending.
Yeah, well, we can invite them in and they can choose to attend. Anyone who wants to attend, we can choose to invite them. So Jenny, we just want to make sure that we're all clear on what the process is, what the process has been, where we're at, sort of our negotiating position essentially for this role. And so we want to make sure that the sort of our respective boards are up to speed on that process and that we can talk about our negotiating position. Chris, would you add anything to that or amend that in any way?
I think that's reasonably fair.
So Region 9 is just not interested in hearing that information?
Just to be clear, I am, but I don't represent the majority.
The folks that.
Thank you, Carol.
To be more specific, it obviously didn't pass, so there is a significant number that never mind.
Yeah, I think we will invite them into executive session. I suspect a fair number of them will attend, and I think you'll be able to get answers to those questions in executive session. I'd rather not speak to them. I have an idea of what people are objecting to, but I would rather not speak for them.
Can you please turn on the share screen so we can see the rest of the?
Oh, sure. Right. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Juliet. I was going to ask the same thing.
Yeah.
I guess, John, my concern was it, they know something I don't know, like that there's a reason to be concerned that isn't apparent to others.
Not to have a discussion. No, I don't think that there is. And I think we'll know soon enough, and certainly nothing can happen in executive session that we come out of there with some secret decision. That's not how it works.
All right. Any other discussion on the pending motion from the Reading side? I think it was a Reading motion first, so we'll call the question. Heather?
Yep.
Colleen?
Yep.
Mike?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Steph?
Hold on. Yeah. Am I on?
Yep, there you go.
Yes. You're
Chris
there.
Hucker?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carries 7-0. The agenda is so amended.
Thank you. For Easton, Jenny? Yes. Okay. I see it. I see your hand. Devin?
Yes.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes. Motion passes to amend the agenda 4-0. There was another motion, Chris. It obviously was defeated. Is that something that we want to entertain independently?
I'm sorry?
Do we want to entertain the motion that Region 9 put forth as a sort of add-on to theirs? They put forth 2 motions. the sort of discussion. We could do that when we come out of it.
We can do that
Yeah,
when we come
we
out
can
all
do
the
that
same,
later.
right? If it was persuasive to carry
Yep.
Region 9, we could have had that conversation, but it doesn't seem like
Yeah.
that was going to.
Good. All right.
All right. So since the motions carry for Easton and Reading, we have a new item 6 for executive session. And that's it, just to clarify for the record. All right. Anything else in discussion and possible action? Okay, then we'll move on to item 5, public comment. Again, any members of the public, if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand in the chat room, or not the chat room, but the participant window, or in the window on your Zoom tile there, and limit your comments to 2 minutes or less, and please identify yourself and your address when you start. We'll look now for any members of the public that would like to comment. The other board chairs can help me look across
Yeah, I'm
the
not seeing
screen. So
I'm not seeing anybody.
I'm going through. I don't see anybody waiting list.
No.
All right, I don't see any. All right, then we will move on to the new item 6, executive session for appointment of finance and operation, or director of finance and operations. And that's for Easton and Reading.
And Todd, before we do that, before we recess to executive session, is it fair to say Stephanie and who else? Jen Del Ponte, sort of other members of the administration, I think can probably go. Right? I think we may need to invite Red Bellin. We may need to invite Vicky in. That right? I don't want to hold them
Sure,
there.
no, I appreciate the concern. Yeah, I think they would all be, anybody that's not going to be invited in, yeah, they could drop, because I think it's just board member comment after. So if they don't want to stay for board member comment, absolutely they can drop.
Okay.
Do you want to take the motion first, John?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to take the motion first? You need to make a motion to move to executive session and who you're going to invite.
All right, thank you. All right. Entertain a motion to move to executive session for the Easton board and to invite in Dr. Harrison, Vicky Cram. I'm sorry, I'm missing. Oh, there's Scott, and the members of the Region 9 board. Anyone?
And that's to discuss appointment of director in finance and operations.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone care to make that motion in Easton?
So moved.
Thank you, Gretchen. Second for Easton?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Devin. Thank you, Devin.
Same motion in writing. Anybody?
I'll
Mike,
make that.
Any discussion?
second. Heather,
I'm so sorry. What just happened? Who was first? Who was second?
Mike and Heather for Reading.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All right. Do you want to call the question, John?
Yes. In Easton, we'll go in order again. Jenny? Thank you. Devin?
Yes.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I vote yes. Yep. We're in executive session at 8:48 p.m.
All right, so
Calling the
sorry, go ahead.
question for Reading. Heather,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Steph,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carries 7-0. Reading recesses to executive session at 8:48 p.m.
All right, so how do you guys want to do the exec session? Can you, as co-host, can you make the breakout rooms? Do you have that available?
No.
I don't see breakout rooms. I think you would have to set them up. I think only like the host can create and send
Yeah.
people to the
All right, so let me do, I'll just create one room and I'm going to go through and make sure I get everybody. If I miss somebody, you guys aren't going to be able to add them. So if I do, I apologize if I miss somebody.
Right.
You're going to have to text me or come back out and we'll get them added back in.
We're here.
So I'm getting everybody assigned to the exec session. All right, I think I have it ready. So I'm going to open the room so you guys can go in. And if I miss somebody, ping me and I'll add them. But you should be getting a message to join. I guess if you're still in the main session, you can also ping me and say you need it added.
Yeah.
So again, for any board member from Easton and Reading, you should be getting a message to join into the executive session and need to accept that message to go into the breakout room. And if anybody is still here, and also that was Dr. Harrison, Vicky, Scott.
Todd, I don't see anything different or new.
Should not, for Region 9, you should still be in the main session as well as the public. So anybody from Region 9 that wants to attend, we were invited.
I don't,
It's Jenny that's talking about it for the Easton.
Oh, sorry, Jenny. You should be, I see you there. Did you get a message to join?
Where would that be?
It should be in the lower portion on your menu because let me see if I can, you're there.
Says join breakout room. It's asking you to
Okay,
join breakout
hold
room.
on. Let me see. I may
Oh,
have missed
now I
you.
got
You're just logged in as Jenny? Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. I think I missed you. Sorry about that.
Sorry, it's okay. It's Steph Olton. I haven't gotten anything
You
either.
as well? Okay, sorry.
Right. That's okay.
Okay. Both of you should be getting it now.
Oh,
So then
there
you
we
can
go.
accept it. So you just need to accept it. Jenny, did you get the message? I think so, since her tile's frozen.
yeah, she did. She's out now.
Anyone from Region 9 wants to go, we were invited. If you want, let me know. I'll sign you. Otherwise,
Yeah, I'd like to go, Todd.
Cheryl. Just give me 1 second. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else from Region 9, if you want to go, you are invited. Otherwise, we'll stay here and wait for them to come back.
So Todd, I'm
I
so
need to
confused.